I mean, with artificial intelligence, we are summoning the demon.
Winner, winner, Sheen dinner.
Oh boy, we're gonna have a swell time tonight.
Vía Zoom, el gobernador de Nuevo León.
Hello, welcome back to A Boring Revolution, your #1 news source for everything in regards to The Boring Company. Hope you all well. So, if you have not been following developments, there has been an interesting tidbit of news come out from an interview which involved this gentleman here, Samuel García, who is the mayor or the official for Nuevo León. And basically, while talking about Giga Mexico, which is an incredible project that's going to be built out over the next 18 months, the topic of water conservation, shortage of water in the area was brought up. And he mentioned that the Boring Company potentially could be getting involved. I have some strong opinions on this. In fact, I have some great ideas as well, which I'm hopefully going to bring to you in a future video. But I thought we should talk about this topic because potentially this could be hundreds of millions of dollars of additional income for the Boring Company if it can potentially land this scheme and help out this area, which has a water shortage despite having several rivers surrounding the area. So let's listen to the interview and hear what he's got to say. Unfortunately, it's in Spanish. If you don't speak Spanish, then that might be a problem. But I'll put the link to the interview below so you can translate it over. Okay.
El Board of Directors pues dio luz verde y les dieron señales a los proveedores de ya venirse. Entonces ya tenemos aquí alrededor de 20 Tier 1, Tier 2, Chain Supply, proveedores de Tesla. Yeah. Yo estaba muy seguro, muy confiado que se iba a dar. Nunca vi en peligro la planta y afortunadamente, como en todo, quien manda es el mercado. Sí. La gravedad del mercado fue quien trajo a Tesla a Nuevo León y sí, por eso es que estamos muy contentos.
Gobernador, ¿cuál es la acción de mitigación en relación con el tema del agua que ha preocupado al gobierno federal? ¿Qué se hará al respecto?
Pues gracias a la comunicación que hay con el presidente, a quien yo agradezco, también agradecer a Marcelo Ebrard y a mis amigos de Conagua. Tesla es una empresa que se peleó todo el mundo, porque es una empresa que además de llegar con toda esa tecnología y transferencia de conocimiento, no contamina y no usa agua. Estamos hablando de que Tesla le solicitó al Estado de Nuevo León, y digo exagerado, así como, sí, como el máximo, 80 litros por segundo de agua tratada. Nuevo León cuenta con 3,000 litros de agua tratada porque tenemos ya años haciendo plantas tratadoras. Y hay una justo al lado del terreno de Tesla, que es la planta tratadora de García, que tiene años ofreciendo 250 litros por segundo, que nadie había pedido porque no había habido instalación ahí. Todo se estaba yendo a Podaca, pesquería. Entonces, no hay ningún problema del agua. Al contrario, ayer Elon me ofreció traer a Boring Company, que es una de sus empresas, para estudiar con su tecnología de punta cómo tener más agua potable para la ciudad de Monterrey.
Se me va a acabar el tiempo, gobernador. Preguntarte qué otra inversión sigue.
Ay, caray, pues muchas. La ola Tesla viene acompañada de muchas inversiones. Este año vamos a triplicar la inversión extranjera. Se rompe récord nacional, se rompe récord estatal. Y en cuanto tenga noticias de otras grandotas.
So, as you probably heard in that video, there is some water shortages in this region of Mexico. Pretty much in every region of Mexico there are water shortages, and this particular governor doesn't believe it's a problem. He believes there's a bit of politics at play. He believes that other governors want to pull Tesla into their regions, and he believes that it's fine that they can accommodate that facility. So I thought today we'd have a quick discussion about that and kind of determine if the Boring Company could possibly help. I certainly believe they can, and I'm going to do a whole video on potentially a really big civils project that could help in this particular region using Boring Company technology. So it's a bit of a dilemma for Tesla because they need to build that factory, but they've also not got enough water in that region at certain periods of the year. I'm assuming that there are periods when there is abundant water, and there are periods when it's in shortfall. So it's a bit of a dilemma because if they don't build this factory, the company's in trouble. So this is the render of the factory. It looks very lush and green, but really in reality, it's not quite this green for a good sort of 8 to 9 months of the year. It's a big facility. It's northeast Mexico. It looks more like this, more kind of desert-like, with some shrubs, but not much. This area here at the bottom of the screen, you can see it looks like a kind of a sandy area. That was once a river. That's how it is. So at one point, that area there was a river. So as you can see, there are kind of green areas, obviously some rainfall, but not quite everywhere. So whereabouts is this Gigafactory? I pulled this off Wikipedia. Looks fairly accurate. I obviously did my checks as well. So we think it's in this region here. Dropped it on Google Maps. This kind of mountain range here looks very similar to what's on the CGI. So I'm pretty confident it's here. As you can see, it's already looking kind of dry. Good to see some power links there as well. And this is a better illustration. This here, I believe it's around here. This used to be a river at some point. Now, how long that has been dry, I don't know, but it's not great. Overall, just make a quick point about this site as well. This is not the best choice of site for one particular region. Now, it's certainly in a good geographic location, given that it's close to the Austin Gigafactory. It's obviously close to the Mexican border, and it's close to a major city in Mexico. They're all positives. However, there is a considerable elevation difference between point A here in the distance and point B here. It might look fairly flat to you, but actually there is a good 7 to 8 meters in elevation change between point A and point B, if not more. At the rear of the site, it's more like 30 meters, but I'm guessing they're not going to use that part. But there is definitely some considerable work that is required to level out and kind of condition this site for a gigafactory. Ultimately, you're going to end up with columns at the front elevation that are taller than columns at the rear elevation, or potentially you're going to have part of the building be a basement, which will be cut off from the rest of the rear of the site. But that's not a big issue, you can resolve that. So here's our site. If you looked at this plan, you'd be thinking, goodness, it's surrounded by rivers. Rivers everywhere. There's a river in the north, up here. There's a river here. There's even a river on the site. There's a river down here. And there's some stuff over here as well that I'm going to show you in a minute. So what happens if we actually look using the satellite and see what's there? By the way, just to kind of confirm with you that this is definitely the area, you can see the contours of this mountain range here. Matches this here, and obviously matches this here. There you go. It's definitely this site, so I'm 100% sure. Before we do that, actually, let's just have a look at some numbers, and then I'll show you the overall kind of conditions on site in Mexico. So, as you know, there are a lot of green activists in Germany who have a problem with Tesla, and they're not happy because they believe there is a water shortage. There's not a water shortage in Germany. Clowns like this guy are just NIMBYs causing problems. They don't want anything built. If it was in their mind, they'd actually demolish everything and everything would just be a field. Everyone living in mud huts. But there are abundant industrial companies in and around this area of Germany who consume vast amounts of water. And because they've been there for 30, 40, 50 years, they get to take all the water. And any new companies that come in, they're not allowed to share that water. They have to find their own water sources. So what has actually been said? So Brandenburg, Germany, as you can see, the site's main facility has the same amount of space as 130 soccer fields or football, and it is humming with activity, churning out a few thousand vehicles a week. But Musk's plan to triple the size of the operation is running up against one big problem. Guess what? It's not a problem. Far from a big problem. It's a tiny, tiny little problem. The plant is in a drought-stricken part of the country where water is scarce. But the rest of the country has lots and lots of water. And in fact, this area has large numbers of reservoirs and lakes. So you've got to ask yourself, where's all this water going? It takes a substantial amount of water to do things like paint exteriors, cast vehicle parts and cool heavy machinery. A lot of that water can be recycled, by the way. Tesla's contract with the German government estimates that the expanded factory, so they are looking to expand it by another 30 to 40%, will use 1.4 million cubic meters of water every year, or roughly the same amount of water that a city of more than 30,000 people would consume. So this guy here, who's a bit of a NIMBY and is just causing problems for everyone, wants everyone just to kind of stop and you know, stop doing all these amazing projects and just kind of listen to him, because he's a complete moron. He wants you to stop because sometimes they have some water shortages, and these lakes, they're not allowed to drain these lakes to 0% because, hey, you know, we might need the water. But, you know, these lakes have got adequate amounts of water in them all year round. Most of them do. So it's not an issue. There's plenty of rain in Germany, and there's obviously plenty of opportunity for catching that rain and then having bigger stores of it. And that comes back to how much water would a gigafactory in Mexico actually require. So if Giga Berlin requires 1.4 million cubic meters, and we're going to assume that Giga Mexico is double the size, but there may be some efficiencies using the compact car. Let's assume that that's 2.1 million cubic meters. If you divide that by 365 days, you get 5,754 cubic meters of water per day consumed by Giga Mexico. What if you wanted to have a 100-day supply for Mexico? Well, we need to times that by 100. So that would be just over 500,000 cubic meters of water. What kind of reservoir would we require to kind of store that water? Be 190 meters by 151 meters by 20 meters deep. That's a fairly deep reservoir, by the way. Also need to assume the edge of the reservoirs a 45-degree incline, and the columns as well. So we've added 5%. So we just increased the depth by an extra meter. So it's 21 meters instead of 20 meters. So that's not that bad. I mean, I think that's doable. I think the boring company could be part of that, supplying that water. The question is, which is what I've been looking at the last sort of 24 to 48 hours, is where would this water come from in this region of Mexico? Because from Google Maps, you kind of assume that the water's everywhere because there's lots and lots of blue lines. But in reality, it's very, very bad. There's not a problem in Berlin. Lots and lots of water in and around Berlin. It just needs to be captured. In Mexico, that is far from the truth. There really is quite a bad water shortage at certain parts of the year. I'm assuming that they have a 3 to 4 month wet period where there's lots and lots of water. It's fairly abundant. But then they'll have an 8-month period, maybe even a 10-month period, where water is extremely scarce. And a lot of these rivers in the region. So we have the Rio Pesquera is bone dry. What I'm able to see, if you zoom in, is that in some places the river is less than half a meter wide, and it looks extremely shallow, and in lots of places it's just dried up. So really not good. What about this river here? So this river is just to the north. I believe it's just to, no, in fact it's to the east. East of this site, the Mexican Gigafactory, the Rio Santa Catarina. What about this river? In fact, there's 2 rivers because there's a tributary here, and this joins the main river, and then they go, I think, go down or up. I'm not too sure. But this is even worse. This is one's completely dry, bone dry. There's nothing there. It's just dust. So there's no water to supply Giga Mexico. If you're building a massive manufacturing facility and you are dependent on water for a large number of processes on your site, you're in big trouble, because the water here is very, very scarce. Now, if you search around, there are actually some big reservoirs, but they are quite far away. Not excessively far away, but they are well over 60, 70 miles away from the proposed gigafactory. Now, there's obviously supply lines that connect this reservoir into Monterrey, you know, and I'm assuming that Monterrey has plenty of water, but obviously a big player like Tesla is going to consume a lot of that water, and then there might be some issues in the long term, especially if rainfall continues to fall. But then again, it might go in the opposite direction. We don't know. So before we assume this reservoir's got lots of water in, I looked at lots of pictures, and then I looked at the satellite. This is a big reservoir. This is like 10 miles from the top to the bottom. It's a big reservoir. Now, it might only be 10-15 meters deep, but it covers a large area. This has got more than enough water for the Boring company, the Tesla, to utilize. However, in the long term, it might be that this continues. It looks like the water levels in this reservoir have been falling over the years, and it looks like it might need to be restocked. So I'm proposing that rather than build a physical reservoir next to the Tesla gigafactory, that they might be able to use this reservoir and then use the existing infrastructure. Remember, the best part is no part, and then supply the gigafactory with additional water to this site. Now, what the Boring company could do is supply exactly the right amount of water that is required to keep the Tesla plant going into this reservoir, and then obviously Tesla then obviously extracts that water from this reservoir for its own use case. But also as well, it might be possible to significantly boost water supplies for the overall region, and therefore provide a good service to the citizens of this area, and hopefully alleviate some of the serious water shortages that we have seen. I'm going to do a full video on this, on how we do it. Ultimately, the rivers that are supplying this reservoir are just not going to cut it, so we're going to need to find a new source. I found that new source, it's not too far away. I've also found another reservoir which I believe we can use as well, and I believe that we can alleviate the majority of water problems within this region. Hopefully you join me on that video. Hopefully you've learned something. The Boring company is in the area at the moment. Steve Davis is here. He's doing some surveys with the team. They're looking at potential opportunities. Hopefully they might see this video, or hopefully they've already come to the same conclusion that I've done. And yeah, I think that this can be resolved. That it's not an unsurmountable issue. It can certainly be resolved with some quality engineering and not excessive amounts of money either. And remember, Tesla is already investing, close to $5 billion in this region. Imagine having a factory that can't operate. So they might as well spend another few hundred million and make sure that this factory is operational, 99% of the year. Hope you enjoyed that. Thank you for all my Patreons. Consider supporting me on Twitter, Instagram, and various other places. And yeah, hopefully we'll see you on the next one. Okay guys, take care. Remember, don't be boring. See you soon. Goodbye.
You've got to take big chances in order for the potential for a big positive outcome.
Come get some.